Here we are again, Mandela effect. I think this is part 9, I think. I don't know, I'm losing track. But here I'm going to put to death this idea that Australia was closer to Antarctica. Now, you can't do that unless you're actually going to completely remember Australia as if it were Canada. The climate, you know that Australia has kangaroos and koalas and rainforest and tropical trees and most of it's desert. Now you know that. There's no Arctic there. There's no ice and stuff like this. Okay? So now I'm going to put this to death. Okay? I'm going to put this idea to death. And we're going to do it using the same thing that you used, pointing at it saying, oh, it's all wrong. Look at the bite taken out of the top. Okay, let's have a look at this, okay? I remember even one guy pretended to be Australian. Yeah, no kidding. He changed his location on his account to Australia, right? That doesn't fool me. Even if you are Australian and you think that, oh yeah, I don't remember the bite out of the top, you know, you're an idiot. You know, but some people in America also do the same thing. It's like, Florida was down there, you know? All right, maybe not that extreme, but, you know, something like that. And they'll look at the map and they're like, and you say, you'll ask an American, you'll say, all right, so tell me, ask them, you know, Minnesota and Wisconsin, which one is to the west of the other one and which one's to the east? They have no idea. They can't tell you. Name the 5 lakes. No, not on your life. Not on your life. The Americans won't even be able to tell you that there are 5 lakes. Like, how many lakes are there in the Great Lakes? 3? I don't know, 4, 5, 7? They have no idea. What are the 2 longest rivers in the United States, or biggest rivers, right? It's like Mississippi. Okay. No idea. Missouri, that's the other one. It's easy. You know, there are 2 states named after them. You know, but there are other things that they can't even tell you, you know. So some of them can't even tell you, like, what are the 2 main mountain ranges in the U.S.? They might come up with Rocky Mountains, maybe, but they'll forget the Appalachians, or the other way around if they live back east, you know. So there are a lot of problems like that. And it's not just Americans who are that way. People are that way with their own country. But let's have a look at Australia. Okay, so I went on Google Earth and I went ahead and measured the distance here. This is the size of Australia exactly, not including Tasmania, but the continent itself, from the top to the bottom. It's almost 3,000 kilometers, or for you Americans, it's under 2,000 miles, 1,850 miles, 1,850 miles. Okay, so we know the size that we're talking about here. 1,850 miles. That's pretty big. Now look at the distance from the bottom of Tasmania to the top of Antarctica. 1,527. Just in case you lost track, that's 1,850. That's 1,527. So even the continent itself of Australia could not fit between Tasmania and Antarctica. And you go, but it looks like it can. That's because this is at an angle again. Remember? I told you about 3D effects of perspective. You can ask any artist. They can explain it to you, okay? All the artists already know that. See? It looks like that. When you tilt it, it looks smaller this direction. It's still the same this direction, but it looks squashed this way, and this gulf here looks like exaggerated. See that? It looks flattened out here, but when it's arched like that, it looks bigger. It looks like deeper, right? That's just the effect of curvature. And here, this looks bigger here too. And then when you go like that, it looks, you know, lesser here, like, you know, shallow. So, but that's just the nature of representing a flat thing on a curvature. So anyway, this will not even fit between Tasmania and Antarctica. It doesn't. This is the Google Earth measurement, 1,527 miles. And this is 1,850 miles. It won't fit. So even if you wanted to move it down a whole continent of distance, it won't fit. All right, so now let's look at the latitudes. And let's talk about the latitudes for a minute. This is the clincher, okay? The very bottom of Tasmania is minus 43. The very top of that horn is 11, minus 11. Minus 11, minus 43. And then the top of Antarctica is almost 66. 65, 66. All right, so now let's look on the United States. 65, 66 is up here in Alaska. It's like up in northern Alaska. It's like Fairbanks. All right, that's where Antarctica starts. So are you going to move it up there? Australia? Are you joking? Or even in Canada, where you got tundra? All right, let's keep going. So here's where the top of the bottom of Australia is, because remember it's upside down because the whole Earth is like that. So this is the bottom of Tasmania. It's right here in Northern California, Southern Oregon. It's right up here. Okay, here's the Bay Area here. You can kind of see it there. But up here is where the bottom of Tasmania goes right here to Northern California, like the Redwoods, okay? Or Southern Idaho, right? Or something. I can't quite see. I guess Southern Idaho. So it's in Southern Oregon. Here's the border, I guess. I'm not sure. I can't quite make it out. But it's somewhere around the border of Oregon and California. All right? So that's the bottom of it. That's the bottom of it. That's the very extreme of the continent. That's where the top of it is. Just around Panama. Panama's right here. It's just here through Nicaragua and Panama. Somewhere around here. This is where that top is. It's tropics. It is tropical. It's minus 10, almost minus 11 from the equator. That is really close to the equator. It's tropical. And all of this in between is desert in Australia. And you're going to move that up into where? Canada? You're going to shift all of this area here, this Mexico, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, you're going to shift this up into Canada? Or what? What do you think the climate's going to be like if you do that? The climate's not going to be like what it is. So if you remember that Australia was closer to Antarctica, you're talking about it being like in Canada. No, you're not going to have the desert climate that's in Australia with kangaroos and koalas and all of this. So you're wrong. This puts a nail in the coffin because you can't remember both as being true. Australia being mostly desert with its, famous, red mountains and stuff, and the Aborigines who are not even wearing clothes most of the time, are very skimpy. How are they going to run in the Arctic of Canada with no clothes on? You joking? Seriously, you guys don't even use your head. You don't use your brain. But it's true, you are weak-minded. Something has happened to you. Something has desperately happened to you about it. First off, you have to ask, was it important to me to know those details? Why is it important to you to know how close Australia or how far it is away from Antarctica? I remember when I first saw Australia so close to Papua New Guinea, and I was in shock too. I'm like, what? I didn't know it was that. How's it, and then I looked and I'm like, well, okay, that makes sense because of the climate. Yeah, of course. Of course it makes sense. When you measure it like this, and you look, you're like in Canada. In Montana, where I grew up, we had ice from October to March or April. It was frozen over all winter, and you'd get 3 feet of snow. From the winds coming down off of Hudson Bay, it would just whip down across there, right into Montana. And when it hit the mountains there, where I grew up at, I grew up just not quite on the east side of the mountains, but kind of, and it hit that, and, we'd be burying in snow, and there'd be ice all winter. Where do you see that in Australia? You don't see that in Australia. So if you move it down, it's like even somewhere down near Sydney, or Melbourne, or Tasmania even, would be iced over for the winter and buried in 3 feet of snow. You don't find that. So, grow up. You gotta let go of that, and just realize that your memory is fallible and it fills in things that are incorrect for what's missing. And it does it in different ways for each one. That's why you've got these different things from different elements all across that are wrong. You're not humble. You may have a humble tone to your voice, but you're not humble. Jesus said that you've got to die to yourself, including your memory, exalting your memory and thinking your memory is always right. You've got to die to yourself daily and take up your cross and follow Jesus. This is for those who are Christians. Those who are not, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. And he also said that those who are ashamed of his words, he will be ashamed of when he comes in his glory and the Father's glory with the holy angels. And if you're saying that his words have been changed, you're ashamed of his words. You are. You're exalting your own words above his. It's what you made up in your head. But other people remember it that way. Of course they do. Because when we, with our modern minds, look at the Middle English of the King James, there are some phrases that are more natural for us that we insert in there in place of what's there. Lion and lamb. There are no end of references in our culture to lion and lamb that have nothing to do with Isaiah 11:6. You got the lion and lamb in Revelation 5 and 6, back to back. That doesn't mean it should be in Isaiah 11:6. That's Revelation talking about something different. That's about Jesus as the Lion of Judah and Jesus as the Lamb sacrificed as a Passover. But in Isaiah 11:6, it's trying to show a predator and the most innocent of its prey side by side. And the lion, the prey is the calf, the cow. A lamb isn't even a snack for a lion. The typical, to the Hebrews, the typical predator of the lamb is the wolf, not the lion. The typical predator of the goat is the leopard, and the typical predator of the calf is the lion. It's not based on what you think and what your culture has brainwashed you into thinking. In our culture, lion and lamb go together, but it's not our culture that the Old Testament was written to. And we didn't put that together from the Old Testament, we put it together from the New Testament, Revelation. And not only that, we have March comes in like a what? And goes out like a what? Fill in the blanks. Comes in like a wolf. No, lion. It goes out like a lamb. March comes in like a lion, goes out like a lamb. Every one of us as kids learn this. Whether we memorize it or not, we hear it over and over again. We know it. So, and as many pastors who are also illiterate and do not immerse themselves in the scriptures and stay immersed in it, misquote that because they think they know it, they're doing exactly the same thing. And that doesn't justify you doing it. And most pastors now are apostate anyway. They're false teachers. They don't care about the words of Christ. And that's what most of the 600 videos on this website are about. It's not about the Mandela effect. Maybe 10 are about the Mandela effect now, but most of these 600 are about those apostate false teachers in the apostate churches and addressing the heresies that have crept up and risen up in the churches that's now the great monster that threatens the gospel of Jesus Christ. That is far more devious than the Catholic Church was at the time of Luther. What's arisen out of Luther and Calvin is a far greater monster than what had arisen in the Catholic Church by the time of Luther. And that's what this channel is about. And primarily is to support the translation that we're making. It's a literal translation from the original language of Greek, including the Old Testament from Greek, Septuagint. And there's a reason, very concrete reason why, similar to your Mandela effect thing. Go to our website and you'll find a page called Old Testament. Go read it. Website is therootedword.com. Very simple. It's all one word, therootedword.com. Go there, you get the menus, you can access the translation. Translation is live even though it's in progress. That's a grace from us because that's not normally done. But we're letting you see the translation as it develops, and we're using software numbering. So you'll have a 0.5 or a 0. You have a 1, version 2, and version 3. We've got 3 books that are finished right now. The book of Jacob, which is in English erroneously called the book of James. It's literally the word Jacob in the Greek. And in every other language around the world, it's called the book of Jacob. So here's some of your Mandela effect right there as well. We're restoring that. We're putting it back to the way it was, the way it is in the Greek. And then you've got 1 Peter's done and Jude is done. We're working on Ephesians. Probably we're going to do Romans next. I'm not 100% sure that we'll do that exactly next, but it'll be very soon. Right now we're in progress of doing the Sermon on the Mount. We've got chapter 5 done with, I think, 5 or 6 videos teaching on it already in a series called the Sermon on the Mount. Chapter 6 is done, but I've got to go over it once more before we start teaching on it. And then 7 is half done, chapter 7 of Matthew. So the Sermon on the Mount we're going through right now. We're also finishing up a series called The 10 Commandments in the New Testament. This is where we look at each of the commandments and we do a video on it showing where it is reinstated or validated in the New Testament, so that we understand that all 10 commandments are valid for Christians. We must obey them. And we're on, I think, number 8 right now. So we're pretty close to being finished with that. You'll also be able to access those on the website as well. There's a page for the Sermon on the Mount and links to the videos that are embedded in that page. And then you've got one also for the 10 Commandments in the New Testament. There's an additional one that's very interesting that we've done a lot of work on called justification, where we explain the definition of justification in the Greek, which is radically different than how we use it in English. And when you understand that, then you understand what those texts are talking about. Justification by faith and justification by works. Both of them are there in the New Testament. And yet one group, the apostate church, they want to say we're justified by faith alone and not by works, although the text says exactly we are justified by works and not by faith alone. So anyway, you can go avail yourselves of that. I hope that this video has been very helpful for debunking the idea that Australia is closer to Antarctica in some other world, realm, life, whatever you want to say about it, that Satan moved Australia, or however you want it, CERN, and they were experimenting with subatomic particles and poof, Australia's been moved. No, it's not that way. Because otherwise you would remember Australia as having a different climate. And I know for sure you don't remember that. Comment down in the section. Let me know if you remember Australia having a different climate, and where were the animals like the kangaroo and the koala, which require the climate that's in Australia to be there? And where were the Aboriginal people, or were they wearing parkas like the Eskimos? And those of you who hold fast to the scriptures and the testimony of God, I hope you're enjoying this series, and may the Lord bless you as you seek Him with all your heart. Remember to subscribe down below and like the video and share it on your Facebook and other social media. And then make a comment, whether a question or a comment. We read all of them and we try to respond to all. Get on over to our website, The Rooted Word, and start reading the translation and also the articles that we've posted. It's at therootedword.com, therootedword.com. And may the Lord bless you as you seek Him with all your heart.